Hello and welcome to the Foxcatcher Preview Show. First one back for 2026. My name's Julian Valence, joined up in Sydney by the one and only Nick Ashman. How was the break? It's good to see that you are alive. I'm not going to say you're well, but you're alive.
Thank you, Jules. Yes, good to be back. Foxcatcher 2026. Cannot wait to get into it. Really good break. I take most of January off every year just to spend with the kids down at the south coast on a cabin on the beach. Bit of fishing, just relaxing, dropping out, mate. You can't ask for a better break. So I've come back revived, refreshed, ready to hook into some early autumn form. And there's a little bit to dissect, I reckon. This time of year can be a bit tricky, like the early spring. But there's a key difference. We'll touch on that throughout the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about you, mate? How was your break?
Yeah, no, it was good. Did some foraging in a sort of Ecuadorian jungle and, at some stage sort of begged for my passport back from a guy called Paco continually. Well, he says yes, his name was Paco. I'm not sure it was. But anyway, we got through all that. We're back. We are, I think, you said it well. Stay off the grid for a little bit. It's really good and enjoyable, but we have to get back into the grind. So we're back on the grid.
Yes, we do.
Off the wagon, on the wagon, whatever it is. We're on it. We're off it. And we're ready to kick in. And the only way we start.
We're always on it.
Yes, we start by getting into the track intel. Let's kick off. Caulfield, I'll start us, mate. Out 4 metres the entire circuit. We'll be on a good 4. Been pretty sort of drying, hot conditions here in Melbourne for a couple of weeks, thank God. We might get an upgrade at some stage. 15 to 25 kilometres southerly. So if it does get up into that 25 plus, we know that that's a tailwind in the chute. You probably want to be with horses on speed at the 1,000 to 1,200 at Caulfield in that chute. But just keep an eye on that. It might not get up to that. So I don't think it's going to have too much of an impact. In terms of the intel, how I think it'll play with the numbers when it's out 4 metres on a dry deck, the chute, I think pretty even, but I do want to bonus leaders just if that southerly does kick in. It's always an advantage on a dry deck. If it ends up a good 3, there's no disadvantage being right on the speed at Caulfield. Circle, I want to be forward of midfield here. I think this is a bit of a play, and leaders in particular, plus in terms of the ROI for my numbers when it gets into this position. So 1,400 metres plus, I think more of an advantage to be forward of midfield and leaders in particular, but the chute a little bit softer in regards to that. We've got Rosehill with you, mate. It's what are we doing there? I think it's out 3 metres the entire circuit.
Yeah, 3 metres should be pretty dry as well. Not too much rain at all forecast between now and Saturday. We're sort of hearing that rails and run will be an advantage in terms of the way the ground is in the home straight, anything from sort of lanes 1 out to lane 6. Usually you find just poking through the middle there when the rail's out 3 metres. It's pretty consistent at Rosehill, which is good. We like consistency. It's easy for punters to read, even if there's a pattern, so long as it's consistent. That's what we can always ask for as punters. One thing I will note, there's a northeasterly breeze that's due to get up to maybe 30 kilometres an hour. It's supposed to die down in the afternoon, but perhaps for those first couple of races, you might have a little bit of a northeasterly, and that will sort of blow sort of into the right-hand side of horses' faces as they're coming down to the side of the track between the 800 and the 400 metres. So maybe that might just a fraction offset sort of being up and in, if you like, but I expect it still to be a fairly distinctive advantage to be forward of midfield on Saturday.
Beautiful. Love it. So that's the intel for both Caulfield and Rosehill this week. All right, let's get into a few Fox factors here. So for the punters, this is sort of something we're going to try a little bit different in 2026, and I'll sort of kick us off, but no doubt throughout the year you will put some in. And more or less what we're trying to do here, Nico, is just thought-provoking ideas for the punter to then make their decision up of which way maybe a horse might go in the market, or will it be trended towards? Will it have impact on performance? All those kinds of things. But in essence, we're trying to throw it back to the viewer, the punter, to go, okay, I've got to make up my own decision. But it's not something you're going to be able to see in a race book. It's not something you're going to be able to get in a form guide or anything else. It's something that we've sort of tried to try and create ourselves, and then for the punters to try and figure it out for themselves. So going to start with a horse called Jenny's Meadow, who's sort of sitting around $2.55, $2.60 right now at PointsBet in race 1 favourite. But the jockey, Patrick Maloney. So we've drilled down into runners under $3 in the metro area that Patrick Maloney's been on. And have to go back to January 2022 here, mate, to right now. Now, he's only had 6 rides. He's only had 6 rides where he's in the metro area ridden a horse under $3. He hasn't had a winner. The market expectation's been at 42%. Now, that's not to say he can't get it done here on Jenny's Meadow. But for the punters out there and what we're trying to do here is you've got to start thinking, okay, is that $2.55, $2.60? Do you think the bigger guys, the big robots that actually decide these prices at the SP, at some stage you think there's going to have to be some resistance against this? Could be other reasons as well. But it was a really good second behind St. George. There's no doubting that last start. But that's the first Fox factor. Maloney in town under $3. Let's see what that price ends up spitting out Jenny's Meadow and what price you're comfortable taking with as a punter. Conversely, next one, Emily Posman, who's going to ride the favourite Gallant Sun, who's around $3.30, $3.40 with PointsBet right now. Runners under $4 in the metro area. We just went January 2025. We know she's an apprentice. She's only had the 7 rides, so really small sample size, but she's had the 3 winners. So she's exceeding market expectation, 43% versus the market expectation, 32%. So again, punters, you make your own mind up about what you want to do there. And there's another one I want to talk about here, Nico, and I'll get your thoughts on this, is in race 3, it's a race where there's 12 runners and 7 of the runners are apprentices. And then you've got 5 that are seniors, and I'll sort of have Stephen Brown Jr., no disrespect, just as an outlier here, because you've got D Lane, Jay McNeil, Jay Mott, and Al Curry as your 4 senior jockeys. And they're good, solid, metropolitan senior jockeys that ride there consistently, and we have the numbers that they have. But when you're looking at a race like that, I feel like, and I'll get your thoughts on this, Nico, is when you've got 7 out of the 12 that are apprentices, and we'll come up with their numbers really shortly, the race can become a little bit funky. You can have in your mind, we can always write out a speed map. But when you've got 7 apprentices in a race, sometimes, and they haven't been at this track too much, things just go not to plan sometimes.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. And the 3 kilo apprentice, young Weatherly's on Hedonist, who's probably your likely leader as well. So what I find with these apprentices, that the 3 kilo apprentices are really good on horses like Midwest over 1,000 metres because they're just going to go the one speed out of the barriers. Over 1,400, you've got to time your run a bit more. So, look, probably by that stage, the pattern will have emerged. It's good to be right up on top of the speed and maybe even leading. But the question then becomes is how fast does the apprentice go?
Yes.
And that can really change the outcome of the race. If they go too quick in front, it can bust up horses that are early in their preparation. And if they go too slow in front, thinking they can get away with a cheap lead, then those horses that otherwise would have lacked the fitness to win all of a sudden come into the race. So I always think, even though people love to gravitate towards apprentices on clear front runners, it's also a recipe for disaster if you're backing anything else in the race, because sometimes the predicted tempo is not quite what quite eventuates.
Yeah, and I think that's what I'm trying to get to the punters out there with this race is that just, I think, expect the unexpected, because I think you're right. I think Weatherly probably leads on Hedonist. There's no doubting that. But then is one of these other apprentices going to get itchy fingers? Is there a rider here that hasn't been there before? Durnan's never been there. Weatherly's only had 2 rides at Caulfield. Dakota Keen's only had 10 rides sort of at Caulfield. Rose Hammond's had 15 rides. And look, Logan Bates is an outstanding apprentice. He's doing a great job. And Ryan Houston's in that mix as well, who's exceeding market expectation in his rides in the metro area. So I don't want to blanket them all, but just in these kinds of races, sometimes you just got to gravitate towards possibly the senior jockeys that have got the experience and can just watch a race evolve without getting a little bit trigger happy. So that's a really interesting watch for me, is just having a look at this race 3 and see how it ends up playing out. Because I think McNeil he'll have the favourite possibly, and he'll want speed on. So he might just watch this unfold, and if the apprentices do go over the top, then he might be the one that is better suited from that. That was Fox Factors this week, punters. All right, punters, now let's get to both of our sets that we're going to be playing this Saturday. I'm going to start us off, Victoria. Obviously, we're playing at Caulfield. I'm going to start in race 4. It's a horse called Stylish Secret, number 7. It's 5th up here. It's on the quick 7-day backup, which we love for stayers. It's only been going fair, but what I do love about this horse is it's got the grounding for 2,400 metres now. So it's had the 2 goes at 2,000 metres. And again, 2 starts ago, it got beaten by the favourite convincingly. There was no, knock on that. But I just think now the base is ready to explode at 2,400 metres. And I think also its best form has been at 2,400 metres. It did win at this track and distance. I think it was last prep. The other part to it is deep in the prep now, it's a horse that's been able to go deep into a prep before. So I think last prep or the prep before it actually won at its 8th run into the prep. So no issue there. I love the fact that it's a big drop in weight. Look, a lot of these horses over this distance, weight doesn't matter too much because they're not really acceleration horses, but I think it'll impact this horse. It gets under the min with 52.5 kilos. As I said, the 7-day backup, I want to be with Stylish Secret in race 4. This is the one I'm most keen about. Race 5, number 5, Comito each way. Now, 750 was sort of just sitting around all last night, Wednesday night. We obviously do this show Thursday morning. I think that's been knocked off now, but I still think this is the horse I've marked clear favourite around $3.80. So I think there's some juice in this price. The key factor being there's a few at the top. Jenny Gone Bonkers, we sort of know the level for her. Our Chief, we know, I think, the level with it. I thought it had every possible last start, got the right favours, and in essence sort of just won. I haven't got that race going that well. This is a horse that I just don't know where the ceiling is for Comito. So absolutely no luck on debut. It was more or less ridden like a bowl around. And then last start over 1,600 metres was outstanding, really good through the line. Love the last 400, 200. I just don't know where it could end up. I think I did a content piece about this a couple of weeks ago, Nico, saying this is a horse that could end up in a derby, whether it be a South Australian derby or possibly even a Sydney derby or even a Brisbane derby later on in the year. So I think there's some real levels to this horse, Comito. So I want to be with it now when we might be able to get a bit of a price. And then we get to race 8, number 3, a horse called Gallant Sun, who's the favourite here. Look, it won off, I think, 259 days and it had the forward jump out. So there's no doubt they worked on this horse. But it was 1,000 metres up the straight. It's just not a 1,000-metre horse. 1,100, 1,200 is right up its alley. It's 1,100 metres here. The trick is gate 1 with Posman, and we spoke about Posman with those Fox factors that, yes, she's exceeding market expectation around this price point, albeit a small sample size. But she's going to have to really do her work, I think, her homework here from gate 1, because I think she needs to hold leaders back. I think if she ends up 3 back rails, it becomes a little bit sticky for her, an apprentice to try and push out and then get the job done. And they'll go fast. Gracie's Reign will go fast. There's no doubting that. Celsius Star probably likes to go fast as well. That'll be the trick. Can it hold Celsius Star out and keep leaders back? And if it can do that, then I think it gets the right run to win over 1,100 metres Gallant Star. But that start's really important, and it's all about homework, and we obviously try and do our own for our own punting. But I think jockeys out there need to be doing their own, going, okay, I'm happy to follow this horse, but I don't want to end up another pair back, because that could be the death knell for it. So Gallant Sun, they're my 3. Stylish Secret, Comito, and Gallant Sun at Caulfield. Rosehill, mate, you've got a few actually, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, look, I just a few really at just an each-way price throughout the card. And we're going to kick it off in race 6. As I said, that little bit of a northeasterly breeze early in the day. When the track, when the intel, if you like, or track report, whatever, track walk info, call it whatever you want, tells us one thing, and then the breeze is sort of somewhat offsetting that. Sometimes I'm a bit of a deer in the headlights. I'm like, I don't know which one's going to prevail. Yep. Maybe they cancel each other out. So what I've done is I've gone looking back towards the back end of the card. We start with race 6, number 8, Pippi Beach. Now, she's an interesting one, this horse, because Chris Waller, when he resumed this preparation, she put in a really good run from the back with an informed horse, Grit Girl. Then she was 3 weeks between runs, went up to a Group 3 race at Gosford. Gosford's not really her track. She tends to settle in the second half of the field, and she was very good there behind Kind Words, who's going real so far this preparation. And then last time out, she looked to be perfectly set up on what we thought was a run-on track at Rosehill, a soft 7. She loves a bit of juice in the ground. And unfortunately, the apprentice jockey, just got too far back. I'm not entirely sure it's the jockey's fault. It was maybe circumstances on the day, but nonetheless, she ended up a long, long way back and ended up running home really well behind Cross Tasman. Drops in weight off that last start performance. Cross Tasman's in this race. It's the odds-on favourite. I just think with Pippi Beach, she's a real Rosehill specialist until she got to that race last time out. Now, granted, she finished third. She was beaten around 4 lengths. She'd missed a place, I think, just twice in 7 runs at Rosehill. She's a real specialist on a home track. She's only been beaten more than 1.25 lengths once at Rosehill. And so, again, just emphasising that she's a good each-way play. J-Mac takes over. He's unbeaten in 2 runs on her. So I think that's a key point here. Senior Jock taking over, probably going to get her in a better position. No knock on Sienna Grima. She's a good apprentice. But just when you got J-Mac taking over, I mean, fair dinkum.
Well, it's just a plus, and you've got to, we'll digress a little bit, mate. But like for the punters out there, to think that just the horse does the work and is just the one that's going to get you over the line is just so naive on how this game works, because the jockeys are just so important and they just get horses to go, and there's no better person. I mean, it's a significant jockey upgrade, and as you say, it's no disrespect.
Yeah. Correct. And it's also with Pippi Beach, and quite often these horses that settle in the second half of the field, she's drawn a decent gate on Saturday. The key is to get her midfield or even a touch forward of without actually taking anything out of her finish. And J-Mac is the perfect jockey for that. So I think she's a great each-way play 1x2. Go to race 7. Now, this is an interesting race, this one, because you've got 60s for Chris Waller resuming. Of course, he was taking on the likes of Bivark last preparation. And the other horse that's hard in the market is Rosalind Star, who went up to the Magic Millions, was off the map in that final race of the day, but got beaten. I'm actually going outside of those two.
Do you know why that horse got beaten?
Because you had a ton on him?
No, that. Yeah. And J-Mac went on, was a late replacement ride and pulled their pants down and went to the front.
On Hawker Hall.
Yeah. He was a late replacement rider, and it was just an outstanding ride, but again, significant upgrade.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I was on Woolwoven at about 20s or 30s to 1, so it was a crap day for me as well, mate. But anyway, worse even for Bjorn Baker. I think if we spoke to our man, if you had spoken to him on the day, he was not a happy camper.
Yeah.
But hey, that is January. We're still in January 31st, but we're focusing on going forward. Talk about Glint of Silver for you for a second here, Julesy, number 2. This horse around the $21 mark. First up last preparation, ran into Popper Ward and Arkansas Kid. Pretty handy horses down your way. I've got them as pretty handy horses, better than this lot anyway. He almost beat a horse called Spring Lee up here, speaking of Bjorn Baker, when she was flying. That was 2 preps ago when he ran first up. He's trialled pretty well. I'm not a massive trial guy, but his trials to me look pretty similar to how he's gone in the past. So I think he's going to turn up in pretty good order and run to his usual first up figure. And for mine, that's going to put him in the top 3. He's only got to run to his last 2 ratings of his last 2 fresh run ratings, and he finishes in the top 3. $21, great each way play there in race 7 for Glint of Silver. Then go to race 8, Will I Dow. J-Mac jumps on this galloper as well. Won the Southern Cross Stakes Group 3 race when resuming this day last year, and then took on War Machine first up down the straight in the spring. That's no slouch getting beaten 4 lengths by War Machine when you're looking at the field that he's got to face on Saturday. He's finished in the Quinella at Rosehill in 5 of his 8 runs so far. So he's a real Rosehill specialist, a little bit like Pippi Beach. And he's 3 from 5 with J-Mac in the saddle. Again, J-Mac jumping on a horse that he's got a good affiliation with. I think it's a real plus. If you look at the rating that he's produced first up in his past couple of runs, it says he just cannot miss a place here. Then I go and look at the speed map, and he's going to get this nice trailing run on the rail. He's going to need luck at the right time, but when the rail's out 3 metres and we get the kind of track report that we've got, you want to be just following that pace on the rail and sneaking in between runs. A little bit of dodgem cars in the straight, but hey, we've got J-Mac to finish it off for us. So I think he's a great each-way play there, is Will I Dow. Then go to the last race. Now, this is a bit of a watch. I'm not suggesting you pile into this horse. I think just watch the market late. Number 13, Nepo Baby for Annabelle and Rob Archibald. Clocked the best 200 metres of the day, winning at Scone first up. It was purely dominant on debut. Then went to Hawkesbury and I think beat standard time by about 6 or 8 lengths. Absolutely smashed the clock that day in a really fast tempo race. So can do it on a finish off on a slow tempo, or can dash on a slow tempo, and it can absorb a fast tempo. Really good signs for this galloper. Was taken all the way up to Tamworth. I'm not sure what the story is there for a trial recently, and got the job done there as well. It was just an open trial against the older horses. 3-year-old filly. Just a little bit of a sense that maybe they're going to try and pick up some of these benchmark races and qualify for the stakes races. Who knows? She might even end up in the Surround Stakes. We don't know. But the point I want to make here is keep an eye on the betting. It'll tell you a lot. If this horse firms into $5, I think you definitely want to be on it. It means it's It's the money horse, and more importantly, it's probably going to progress to bigger and better things.
Love that. That's a really good, solid set for Rosehill this week. Just with Rosehill, mate, there's a couple other races that I think people will be wanting to keep an eye out for the future.
Oh, yeah, the Widden and the Canterbury Stakes, Jules. 2-year-old races, obviously, sort of the first of the features. 2-year-olds here in Sydney for the autumn, anyway. What we call the autumn is still summer, technically. Look, Gay Waterhouse got a great record in this race, and both races. She's won both of them 4 times since 2010. So, super record 4 times, I think, in 15 or 16 years. One of the reasons for that is just because she's such a great conditioner of racehorses. She can get them to peak almost first up from a spell, and a lot of other stables will struggle to do that. Sometimes you've got to be wary about their horses when they've had 4 or 5 runs in a preparation, but certainly early on, that's why she's had the dominating effect. She's got Miss Chanel in the Widden Stakes. The one I want you to keep an eye on, though, is Eviction Notice in the Canterbury. Now, this is an interesting galloper because the Breeders' Plate last year went a lot better than the Jim Crack. Incognito won the Breeders' Plate, shot straight to the top of markets for the Golden Slipper, and he's still up and around there as well. Eviction Notice actually started shorter than Incognito in the Breeders' Plate, so he brings that SP. They've given him 2 trials. They've been a bit more quieter on him in the trials, so I think there's a real sense they want to come here on Saturday and try and win with this horse and make a name that he could be a Golden Slipper prospect. I also want to add this point. On the Breeders' Plate Day, I went back and had a look at the pattern for the day, and it was a bit off rail. On Saturday, we're expecting the rail to be a much more favourable position. So if you go and have a look at Waterhouse's record at Randwick versus Rosehill, I wouldn't say it's chalk and cheese, but I'd tell you now that Rosehill record is much, much better for her. No surprises as to why she wanted to save Rosehill as well from the sale. But, hey, I'm going to leave politics out of this because it's first show back. But I want to make that point. Eviction Notice might just be the horse to keep an eye on here and possibly going forward as well.
All right, Nico, we're almost there for the first episode of 2026. And for the people that are watching this, please make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And in saying that as well, make sure you get around the socials, Instagram, the TikTok, the whatever the hell else there is involved. I'm sure there'll be some other Afghan sort of social that'll sort of pop up in 2026, maybe even an Iranian one. Get involved in that. That'll be. I've got no doubt you could do that. There'll be plenty more content.
She'll be able to handle that.
Plenty more content that we're going to be throwing out and just trying to give some extra things, not necessarily sets, but just things to actually have the punters start thinking about that you can't see or can't read, race books, form guides, all that kind of stuff that we will work on for the punters out there. Let's get to the plays of the day. I'll start us off because I'm just a little bit earlier in the day than you, Nico, and as I spoke about in my set, race 5, number 5, Comito each way. I'm just really keen on this horse. It's just got the biggest upside, I think. I really liked that 1,600-metre win. It goes to 1,800 metres here. It probably needs a fast-run race, but if it gets it and the horse can settle, because it can do a couple of things wrong, if it can settle, then I think it can progress. And look, this is a nice race for it because there's some pretty solid enough horses, but I think those horses have reached their mark, the Jenny Gorn Bonkers, the Our Chiefs, and I think I want to be with Comito this week. Yours, mate?
Yeah, it's in race 8 down here. It's Will I Dow for J-Mac. Just looking at the map I've got here, the instructor and Zarastro both go forward. Maybe the instructor tries to burn Zarastro off and cross him. Compelling Truth will be up there with him as well. I just think Will I Dow is going to be getting that lovely trailing run, which when we get the kind of report that we got for Rosehill, that's exactly where you want to be, just on the rails. You do need that touch of luck to get out and not get held up, but we've got the best in the business on board. So I think Will I Dow, I think it's around the 850 mark, just back it each way. It's going to give you an almighty sight.
Beautiful. Love that. Getting into some high percentage plays there with all those things that you just mentioned. They are our plays of the day. Hey, Larry's Letterbox, it just lit up the page in 2025. So we thought, you know what, we're going to keep it going for 2026. Let's keep some momentum rolling. Look, and no doubt throughout the year, people will be throwing in things. Obviously, probably Anthrax will be thrown our way at some stage as well. But what do you got for the punters? Early doors, autumn 2026, mate.
Yeah, lots of emails and messages on social media, just sort of in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and a lot of them are around tackling that early autumn. And is it the same as early spring? Because obviously we spoke about this
Yeah.
going into the spring. So first of all, a couple of things that are similar. You've got to be wary you've got to do your speed map properly. Like in a fast run race where you've got a good, tough on pace horse that's running decent ratings, it can sometimes knock off those I guess, classier types that are going to get back, particularly if they're from a wide gate. And that's simply because they're hard fit, they're going to roll along, and the back markers or the horses with the class are going to concede too much ground. Now, the difference, the two things you've got to watch, the two things you've got to establish, though, is the speed map. Make sure, is it really going to be truly run a fair? And is my horse that is hard fit, is it going to be up there on top of that speed? Because you don't want to be back with the classier horse. Otherwise, it's a similar story. The other thing is to get that track pattern. You can watch it right here on Foxcatcher. Is the track going to be favouring horses up on top of the speed? The more we say to you, hey, leaders plus, as you would say, or rails and runners, I would say, as we're both saying for this Saturday. It's a great example this Saturday. I think both of us are basically saying Caulfield and Rosehill are going to favour horses forward of midfield, if not leaders as well. So this is a great day where if you can find a fit, informed horse that's producing good, solid ratings, then you can probably knock off these classier types that are no doubt going to go into bigger and better races and will produce higher ratings than the horse that you're looking to back this Saturday. The one thing I want to point out, the key difference between coming into the winter to the spring, to the summer to the autumn, is the state of the track. Winter into the spring, a lot of the horses are coming off wet tracks and they get onto a dry track. Two things there. You've got to make sure you're not just backing a mudlark, obviously, but also they tend to have less runs in them. If you have 3 or 4 runs earlier in your preparation on heavy tracks, you usually struggle to go past 5 or 6 runs for the preparation. Whereas in the summer, you can probably go a bit deeper into the autumn if you're going well enough and if you're that type of horse, simply because the tracks aren't quite as testing over the summer months, assuming that is they've been dry. So that's probably the key difference that I would highlight coming out of the summer into the autumn. But certainly, particularly at Rosehill here in Sydney, and I'd say probably more so at Caulfield in Victoria, it's a great opportunity to back a hard fit horse that might just be able to knock off the more classier types.
Yeah, I love that. And because and also just to add that is that it just gets those classier types out of the comfort zone earlier. They just don't have that conditioning, as you said, and they will end up a better horse, no doubt. But just for that right moment, right time, you could be on the money. Mate, great to have you back. Great to see you. I will see you Monday, where we'll review all the stuff that happened on Saturday, both at Rosehill and Caulfield. But for now, see you later.
Love you and Leah, your brother.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.